And yes, Fernando Mendoza had already won the Heisman Trophy by the time last night's game started. But that was the moment, the Heisman moment, the national championship moment for Indiana. And obviously Indiana would have to hold on for dear life at the end of the game and get a Jamari Sharp interception of Carson Beck in the final minute, with Miami with the chance to win, to clinch a national championship for the Indiana Hoosiers. Not in basketball, in football. And there is going to be a lot of what some people will deem hyperbole coming your way here today, specifically today, but also over the rest of the week and in the summer leading up to next year's college football season. There are some people, these are the type of people that hate puppies and hate pizza. These are negative human beings that want to rain on everybody's parade. And like the type of people that, well, actually, let me tell you why this isn't good, or why you're wrong about this, or this isn't fun. And I hope that you, the listener, and you, the viewer, I'm talking directly to you, that you don't get caught in this trap of negativity. When Nick Saban once deemed the rat poison, except instead of rat poison getting in the minds of players, rat poison gets in the mind of you, the sports fan. Because there will be people that will say, oh, it's exaggeration. It's hyperbole. You're prisoner of the moment if you want to say that this is the greatest turnaround, forget about college football, in the history of sports. The greatest coaching job in the history of sports. And the most improbable champion in the history of sports. Now, there are soccer fans out there, I'm sure, who will say, well, what about Leicester City? Good argument. I'm saying the major North American sports. You want to argue Leicester City? I certainly understand that, winning the Premier League in 2015. But as far as anybody else goes, I don't want to hear it. It's not hyperbole. It's not exaggeration. It's not prisoner of the moment. For Indiana winning the national championship in football to be deemed one of the greatest stories, the greatest turnaround, and I'll say it, the greatest coaching job in the history of sports, what Curt Cignetti was able to do at Indiana. And there's symmetry and there's beauty in all of it. 50 years ago, 1976, Bobby Knight leads Indiana to an undefeated season in college basketball and a national championship. And in 2026, Curt Cignetti leads the Indiana football team to an undefeated season and a national championship. And even in this moment right now, we all watch the gameplay. It's like I reference the scene sometimes from The Matrix just because I think it's so apropos for so many different things. Joe Pantoliano, who turns heel in the movie, right? He turns against the humans, and he turns to the side of the agents, right? And he's eating that steak, and he's drinking the red wine at dinner with an agent in The Matrix, and he goes, I know this isn't real, but he's eating it, right? I feel like we all watched it happen last night, and I still feel like it's not real, that this actually happened, that Indiana won the national championship. And sometimes I say here on the show, if you're a sports fan of a certain age, and when I say that, I mean like in my age group, like I'm turned 43 later this year, then you could really understand the significance of some things. You don't have to be my age to get this. You could be 10, 15, 20 years younger than me and understand that Indiana has sucked forever in football and been a doormat forever in football and an afterthought forever in football. And today, champions. National champions. I've used the analogy to describe Curt Cignetti. Walter White from Breaking Bad. Coming out of nowhere, becoming the kingpin basically overnight. Except in Breaking Bad, Walter White's like a monster and he's really evil and his story ends poorly because he's a terrible human being. Curt Cignetti's got a happy ending. He won. And he did it the right way. And they're loaded for bear. And they're one of the favorites to win next year's national championship. And we'll get to the odds market for next year's national championship coming up later this hour. And it should surprise nobody. And I will try to be as positive as possible regarding Miami and Mario Cristobal. Like, Curt Cignetti outcoached Mario Cristobal last night. Like, there's no way around it. And I don't want to turn this into a negative Mario Cristobal thing because Miami could have won the national championship last night. Like, this was not the Peach Bowl. This was not the Rose Bowl. This game was close. Hell, Miami covered the spread. And in the words of some, like YouTube commenter Curtis Johnson, good teams win and great teams cover. And Indiana might be the national champions. But last night, from a betting perspective, they were merely good. While the Miami Hurricanes, of course, were great. But it should surprise no one that Curt Cignetti outcoached Mario Cristobal in the game last night. And what is so incredibly interesting about that, the coaching matchup, Cignetti v. Cristobal, and incredibly interesting and fascinating about last night's game, is that this wasn't the Rose Bowl. And it wasn't the Peach Bowl. And it wasn't Big Ten conference play from this season, or the vast majority of games, the Big Ten title game, or the vast majority of games Indiana's played this season, where not many of those games were close. You had the Penn State game, the Big Ten championship game against Ohio State, and last night. This was not one of the games where Indiana shows up and just nukes the competition, destroys Alabama in the Rose Bowl, pick six of Dante Moore on the first play of the Peach Bowl. This game legitimately could have gone either way. Miami absolutely could have won this game. And I think that provides a great prism with which to view this Indiana season. A team capable of winning and beating you in many different ways. Beating you in blowout fashion, and then doing all the little things necessary to win a national championship. Where this game, by and large, comes down to a couple big plays. The block punt touchdown in the third quarter, like the 17 insane catches by Charlie Becker, and a couple fourth down conversions and third down conversions by Indiana, including the piece of sound that Kenny played for you, the play of the game, the play of the season in college football, where Curt Cignetti, on that drive, by the way, where Indiana scores that touchdown to take a 10-point lead, to go up 24-14, where multiple fourth downs, and you were always going for the first one. You're in no man's land at the Miami 37, and Cignetti's kind of hemming and hawing a little bit, calls a timeout. You get the first down conversion to Becker. And then he's contemplating kicking a field goal to go up 6, calls timeout, sends the offense back onto the field. Brilliant call on the Mendoza draw, on the Mendoza run. And Mendoza, like, this felt like, and this is hyperbole, and I will admit that. This was like John Elway in the Super Bowl against the Green Bay Packers, and like Elway didn't score on the whirly bird play, but it kind of felt like that. Where this felt like the college equivalent of Josh Allen lowering his shoulder and getting into the end zone. The high leverage plays went the way of the Indiana Hoosiers. And a case can certainly be made, and this is why it's so tough for Miami, right? That if a couple of these plays go differently, the punt isn't blocked. No, one of the fourth down conversions doesn't happen. Mendoza gets tackled. Becker doesn't catch the ball. We could be having this conversation today, and Miami are the national champions. Miami, to credit the Hurricanes, kept getting punched in the mouth by Indiana and kept getting up off the mat. And you saw the NFL talent all over the field for the Miami Hurricanes. Whether it's Ruben Bain rushing the passer, whether it's Mark Fletcher toting the rock, whether it's Malachi Toney catching the ball and looking like he needs to be playing in the NFL immediately. He's ridiculously good. That was a stellar, it ended in a loss, a stellar effort from Miami. And people will point to the Carson Beck, and it's a terrible throw at the end of the game that gets picked off. It's not a good throw, not a good decision by Carson Beck. Forced that ball, obviously. And I've criticized Carson Beck in the past. Let's be really honest. Without Carson Beck, Miami is not in the spot that Miami's in last night. Where Miami loses those 2 regular season games, everyone leaves them for dead, and they go on this absolute tour of destruction, annihilating teams to get into position to make the playoff. And Carson Beck's a big part of that. And his coaches and his teammates praised him lavishly after the game for his leadership. And he was good in last night's game. I don't know if he was great in last night's game, but he was good. Good enough to win. Fernando Mendoza wasn't great in last night's game. Mendoza made big plays when it mattered the most, but this was a game that was very much in the balance and could have gone either way. And in the end, it sucks to say, for Miami, and if you're a Miami bettor, and future's better, if you bet Miami in the game last night, you won, that in the big spots and the high leverage moments, Indiana executed, and Cignetti made the right calls, and Mario Cristobal didn't. Specifically, and I don't want to turn this into an anti-Cristobal thing because he did an incredible job this season. They almost won the national championship. But at what point, like 4th and 2 at the end of the first half, and you settle for a 50-yard field goal that the kicker doinks off, the Carter Davis doinks off the upright? Like, how do you not go for that? Like, how have you not learned your lesson yet with things like this? 50-yard field goal. Like, you're the underdog in the game. Like, if you're gonna kick, go for it and try and get closer. I hated that decision for Mario Cristobal. And they still could have won the game on the final drive, but hey, you probably would have liked it if it went a little differently. So this was a game, again, where Indiana did the things that Indiana needed to do to win, and Miami just comes up a little bit short. My last note on Curt Cignetti in Indiana for this segment, we'll talk about Fernando Mendoza on the other side. I'm far from the only person to say this, right? And I think if you've ever played the NCAA football video game, right, which came back a couple years ago, I'm old and like I have a kid, and I wish, this is not me saying, hey, like video games are for young people, you whippersnappers, you losers. I wish that I could sit down and play. I want nothing more than to just play, like hit my pen and play video games, as opposed to be stone cold sober all the time and work and take care of my daughter all the time. I wish that I could still do that. So I don't know when the NCAA video game came back, but I played it when I was growing up, high school, college. I loved it. I played the bleep out of it. I had a buddy, my buddy Carl, shout out to him, who used to like spend like 3 days straight after the game came out manually inputting all the real player names into the game. We absolutely loved it. So I'm far from the only person to have this thought. Curt Cignetti just did in real life what we have all done, or a lot of us have done, the listeners and viewers, you, who have done this playing the game in NCAA football. Why do you want to take over Alabama and win the title with Alabama? No. You want to win the national championship with Indiana. You want to win the national championship with Air Force, with Minnesota, with Virginia, with Oregon State. Insert like moribund, downtrodden franchise. That's what you want to try and do. Curt Cignetti did this in real life. And how incredible is that? Just the greatest coaching job ever. Ever. In the history of sports. And as far as the sport of college football goes, I said this yesterday, right? A lot of people bitch and moan about a lot of things with college football. And I bitched and moaned yesterday. I was a bitcher and a moaner and a whiner and a complainer yesterday that the game was played on, and I still think that. Game should not have been last night. Needed more attention on it, and obviously everyone watched the game, but everyone's talking about the NFL divisional round. College football is not without its warts, right? It's not perfect in the same way that nothing and no one is. I think this college football season is one of the best ones, if not the best one in my lifetime. I am obsessed with the fact that we got a college basketball style Final Four. And just consider this for a moment, right? Let's say that we were still at a 4-team playoff. The 4-team playoff would have been Texas Tech, Indiana, Georgia, and Ohio State. And how much that sucks, knowing what we know now in retrospect, and how much better it is that we got what we got. I love the playoff. I love that the NIL era, and I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's even the playing field where you can get a team like Indiana to win the national championship. Texas Tech can make the college football playoff and get a bye and win the Big 12. I think this is amazing. So yes, we all complain, and there are things worth complaining about. But I think it's important today, with the sport having ended for this season and not returning in our lives until Labor Day, to take a moment and say, this season ruled. And this sport, college football, is absolutely amazing.